With the announcement of Apple's new iPhones, I think it's a good time to go over all the options if you're looking to buy a new iPhone, and talk about which ones you should avoid and which ones are actually worth buying. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91Tech, and today we're redoing my iPhone buying guide. We'll be doing this by talking about every iPhone at every price range available, from the $1,000 plus ones to even the $50 ones, which do exist, and at the end I'll give some recommendations that will depend on your personal price range. If you want to skip ahead, I'll put the timestamp in the description to my conclusion so you can just get the answer, but otherwise we're just going to jump right into this and start talking about the brand new iPhones. So we'll start specifically with the iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max. Both of these phones are going to be the best of the best. They are also going to be the most expensive of the most expensive. We're looking at $999 for the smaller iPhone 11 Pro and then $1099 for the Pro Max. Now, this is a lot of money, and obviously it'll be less on contract, but for most people it's just not worth it to get that top model. You're not really gaining that much, especially compared to the iPhone 11, which I'll talk about in a moment, and honestly I don't think it's worth it for most people. That being said, if you want the best of the best, just go for it. I mean, the 11 Pro looks like a great phone, and it does have that interesting 3-camera setup, but that out of the way, let's continue on to the iPhone 11. Now, the iPhone 11 is the successor to the XR, so it's essentially the same thing. It's the same in most ways as the 11 Pro, but it only has 2 cameras and an LCD display instead of OLED. If you don't know what that means, you're not going to notice the difference, so don't worry about it. This phone is much cheaper at only $699 to start with, which is a really good deal actually, like surprisingly good for Apple. And so I think this phone is absolutely worth buying new. In fact, if you want to buy new right now, this is the phone I would buy, honestly. It looks like it's going to be a great phone, and there's really no complaints. And so yeah, iPhone 11 totally worth buying. Now we come to last year's phones, the iPhone XS and XS Max. The iPhone XS and XS Max are still really great phones. I mean, I have one and I really like it, but they have been discontinued by Apple, which means pretty soon you're not going to see them brand new anymore. That being said, carriers will still have them in stock for a while and will probably lower the price to try to sell them off, and so if you can find a good deal that way, the XS is still a pretty good phone. Is it worth it over, say, the XR or the 11? Possibly not, but if you've had an OLED panel in the past, you are going to want the XS, and if not, and you don't know what an OLED panel is, then I would recommend going up to the iPhone 11 or even the XR. So unfortunately, I don't think the XS is the best buy anymore unless you can find a good deal. Now we come to the iPhone XR. The iPhone XR is interesting to me because I didn't expect Apple to keep it around. I figured the iPhone 11 would just straight up replace it. It starts at $599, whereas again the 11 starts at $699. So for $100 less, you're getting a little bit less, but honestly, it's still a really good phone, and it's gonna do you really good. That's great grammar, but regardless, the XR is still a really great phone. It has different colors. They're much more vibrant colors than the iPhone 11, so if that appeals to you, it might be worth it. This is a good phone to buy new. I do think the 11's a better deal simply because it's only $100 more. If you prefer one of the colors on the XR, then I'd say go for it. So I think the XR is still worth buying. However, the 11 is a better deal, so I would recommend the 11 over it. Next up is the iPhone X, a phone that you might have trouble finding brand new as Apple doesn't actually sell them on their website anymore. But you could always get one used or refurbished off of eBay, and they seem to actually be going for decent prices over there. If you look around enough, you might be able to find a really nice one for as low as like $500 US. That's honestly not a bad deal, although prices probably will drop in the next few months, so I'd recommend waiting it out. And I also would recommend buying the iPhone XR or 11 over the 10. If you do want that gorgeous OLED display, then the 10 is going to be a good buy, especially used. Now we come to the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, the last phones with the home button that Apple is still selling on their website. If you're not ready for the new design, these are without a doubt the best iPhones you can get, and really the ones you should get. They're very fairly priced at $449 or $549 respectively, brand new and unlocked. Ideally, you'd buy them on contract, as many carriers will have plans starting at $0 down, or you could find them used for a couple hundred less if you'd like to on eBay. Overall, the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus are definitely worth buying and are actually one of the best phones you can buy if you're looking to save some money. And then there's the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. These have been discontinued by Apple, but they'll still continue to be sold by carriers for a while as they clear out inventory. These phones are quite solid still, and I think you probably could lock yourself to a 2-year plan without too many worries, but I do think the iPhone 8 or the 8 8 Plus are going to be the better buy, so I'd recommend looking for one of those. Moving further down the ladder, we have the iPhone 6s and the 6s Plus. These are still getting iOS 13, although it's worth mentioning that there's no guarantee they'll get 14. That being said, I'd be absolutely shocked if they didn't, as these phones are still quite capable. They have an okay camera, still decently quick hardware, but admittedly are missing some of the newer, nicer features of newer models. But hey, they have a headphone jack and 3D touch, which the newest iPhone doesn't have. Overall, I'd recommend getting the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus over the 6s, but if you're on a budget, you can find one of these for under $200 on eBay.com. Just make sure you get at least 32 gigabytes of storage, as 16 is way too little. And now we come to the iPhone SE, the cheapest phone still supported on iOS 13. If you're on a budget or actually prefer small phones, this is without a doubt the one you should buy. It can be found for around $100 on eBay.com, both used and refurbished, and it's still a pretty great phone. Like the 6s, it will probably get iOS 14. We can't say for sure, but I'd be surprised if it didn't. The SE is small, but it packs a big punch, and if you're low on funds, it's the absolute best buy for your buck, at least when it comes to Apple. And those are all the phones currently being supported by iOS 13. The iPhone 6 and 5s were left on iOS 12, and so I won't talk about them too much. Although if you are on an extreme budget, you could easily pick up a 5s for like $50 on eBay. I wouldn't recommend getting the iPhone 6 under any circumstances, even though they are quite cheap right now. The SC or even the 6s are just going to be a lot better because they'll have iOS 13. So what iPhone should you end up buying? In the end, of course, it's always going to be up to you, but I do have a few recommendations based on your general money situation. If you want the best of the best and have money to burn, the newest iPhones are without a doubt the best choice. I'd recommend the iPhone 11 simply because I think it makes the most sense for most people. The 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max are honestly really overkill, and they're also quite expensive. And if you have a little bit less money but still want to buy something new, you could get the iPhone XR. It's also a great phone, and it has some different color options if that appeals to you. If you want to buy new but don't need anything spectacular, the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus are also great. I know I'm giving a very wide range, but for once Apple actually has a really solid lineup, with none of the phones actually being kind of not worth it. In the past, they've usually had one or two models that I'm like, you probably shouldn't buy, like last year I said for the iPhone 7, but here they're all really good. I don't think you should buy the best iPhones, and I would say the iPhone 11's a better buy over the XR. So if you wanted two phones that are like the best phones for your buck that you should get right now, it would be the iPhone 11 as well as the iPhone 8/8 Plus. And if you're willing to buy used, I'd say the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus are still great choices used as well. And the nice thing about that is you wouldn't be locking yourself to a 2-year contract. If around $300 for the smaller iPhone 8 is a bit out of your price range, a used iPhone 7 or 6s also isn't a horrible choice. And if you're really on a budget, the iPhone SE is killer. I've often seen it for well under $100, and it's really tough to complain about that price point. And that's really all I got here. I think the iPhone 11, iPhone 8 or 8 Plus, and the iPhone SE are currently the best value iPhone buys out there, but make sure you let me know what you think in the comments down below. Hopefully this video was somewhat helpful, and if so, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at 91_tech. And with that all being said, I'm Josh from 91tech, and I will see you all next time.